December, yeah, December of 1946 into, it's only 2 months, into February of 47 is Operation High Jump, where, they say that, he brought all the ships and troops and everything, planes down. He lost a couple of planes, 4 men, encountered UFOs, right? And returned, stops in Argentina. The El Mercurio newspaper says that he said that they can fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds and an attack could be imminent, right? And then I don't remember who the president at that time was, told him to stop talking about, Antarctica, right?
Right.
So then Congress a few months later is talking about the atomic testing and all of that. And they want, like, Bikini Atoll and all of those in the Pacific. They said, well, why don't we just blow them up, test them in Antarctica, right? This is probably May or June of 47. So it's in Congress talking about testing the atomic bombs in Antarctica. What happens middle of July over the White House and Congress, over Congress?
Well, the first one was 13 UFOs flew over. They had an overflight. I think it was 13, but that went on for like 2 weeks. They were really sending a strong message.
Yeah. So think about that. So 2 weekends in a row, the White House gets buzzed, right? And then, they're not talking about using atomic bombs. What was that, 1952 or 1947? I don't know, thinking about it.
52.
52. Yeah, it was 52. Okay. So it wasn't then in 47 that they talked about it. It was later in 52 that they decided that they were going to do that, and then it gets.
Oh, you mean Bird's trip? I think that was
no. Bird's operation was in 47,
right?
But Congress in 52 talked about testing atomic bombs in Antarctica.
Right.
And then couple weeks later, you get buzzed.
Oh, okay. Let me just put a pause on for a minute here, just to do a little housekeeping and say hi to everybody that's joined. Welcome aboard. We should have a fun evening tonight. We're going to be discussing a lot of interesting things, and I think we got started even before we got started. So it's a good kickoff. I am going to record this. This will be uploaded to YouTube, and I hope everybody brought their thinking caps. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be discussed, and I think we need feedback from everybody on it. So whatever knowledge you might possess on any of these subjects, feel free to share them. Okay. So without going any further along, welcome everybody again, and let's continue on. Now, right now, up to this point, we've been discussing a couple of things. John Ventry brought up Kecksburg, and everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with Kecksburg. Well, John has come up with some other information and some theories that I think are going to be, can be borne out about the makeup of what the Kecksburg object was. Okay, that crashed obviously in Kecksburg. So what we can do, anybody have any thoughts on Kecksburg? Okay, hearing nothing right now. John, what's the next step? We're going to go out and try to find out what 537 was, and
Project 437. I went back to the research paper that I originally did with Owen Eichler. And, I read what I could read that's out there on it. And I just added that to it, more substantiation that this is what was going on. Spy satellites were being used, and the program started a year before the Kecksburg crash. And it matches up exactly with what we talked about. And 2 days prior to Kecksburg, and that's all documented, a launch went offline, quarter-mile offline initially, right as the launch. And they could stay up, for a long time.
Right.
And even the low Earth atmosphere ones could stay up for 2 days.
Yeah, I think there was also a lot of experimentation going on. There were the early spy satellites that were actually taking photographs, and they were dropping canisters of the undeveloped photographic evidence of what they were shooting.
Yeah.
That was being done early on. That was the early 1960s. But they also were talking about experimenting with nuclear power. Matter of fact, there was a talk about actually launching a nuclear weapon at the moon back in the 1960s. Then cooler heads prevailed, and somebody said, well, maybe we might not want to do that. But now we're back to the point where we're going to be putting a nuclear reactor up there to power the manned efforts that we have going forward. So by 2030, 2032, we should have people back on the moon, and we may have a nuclear power plant to keep them comfortable and powered up. Now, along the same line, however, the Soviets were the first ones to use a nuclear power plant in a satellite. And I believe they had a satellite, one of the Cosmos series, was nuclear powered. And I know early on, I think they were talking about the Kecksburg object possibly being that spy satellite, that Cosmos satellite. And there was some concern that it might have been radioactive. So I'm sure more will be coming out about that. And it's going to be interesting to find out what Project 437 was with all the technical parameters of it. So,
But even with that, the Russians said that Cosmos 96 was struck by something, and that's why it crashed into Canada, way back in the mountains somewhere in Canada. But if you kind of look at, you've got the Kecksburg coming around, polar launch, on the second day coming around, and you got that launch. So it clips it. It's in the vicinity. It's absolutely in the vicinity of
yeah,
Cosmos 96's launch. And yeah, what they were doing with the camera systems, that little GE Mark II satellite, which was 5.5 feet high and 5.5 feet wide, once it took its pictures over Russia, it ejected the camera system with a parachute that would land in the Pacific, and they knew when they were ejecting it and where it was going to be. And our ships just picked it up and recovered the film and then developed it. So, it's really a lot of that really interesting.
yeah, there's been a lot of spy satellites put up there by a lot of different countries now.
Yeah.
We have tens of thousands of pieces of junk up there. Who knows what the good junk is and what the bad junk is?
Well, the Russians never knew we were using the satellites to spy on them. That information was released in 1991. So they never knew. And it was the replacement for the U-2 spy plane when Gary Powers got captured.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah, it is. Definitely something you're going to want to keep following. And, I'm sure there's going to be more coming out on that as we go along. Actually, interestingly, you brought up an interesting point about the UFO flyover of Washington, D.C. Of course, that was 1952. But
Yeah.
there was a lot of things going on with UFOs during the 1952 flap. And that was a major flap, obviously. But also in 1952, there was an Army colonel attached to the Pentagon that put out a memo stating that we needed to shoot down these UFOs. And he was proposing to use the Nike Ajax, which is our first generation surface-to-air missile that was now under development and just about ready for deployment. So that is actually played very heavily going forward. Now, in 1952 was also, I guess it was Project Sign and Project Grudge, were two top secret reports, one of which also included Fort Monmouth. They had a sighting at Fort Monmouth, radar sighting as well as a visual sighting by an Air Force trainer plane flying along the Jersey Shore. Interestingly, that was validated by, of all people, Ed Asner. Ed Asner was a radar operator at Fort Monmouth when he was in the Army back in 1952. So all these things kind of fold back in on themselves. And I think that we're going to be finding a lot of these dots can be, like Nick Curto says, connecting the dots. Okay. And I think that's what we're going to be doing.
There's a lot of dots to connect, and there's more dots every day.
Exactly. Yep. Total agreement with you, Nick. And they're coming hot and heavy. So connecting them is going to become much easier. Okay.
I have a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
Which one of those military bases was there an alien walking around?
That was McGuire Air Force Base, and that was 1978, January of 1978. Not only was he walking around, but ostensibly, the report has it he was shot and killed by an MP. He climbed over a fence going from Fort Dix over into McGuire Air Force Base, where he expired on an unused runway. So
Oh,
that was, yeah, that was documented, and there's going to be more coming out on that too as we go forward. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears peeled. Okay.
Question.
Yes, Nick.
You had mentioned the idea that we were probably going to be going back to the moon about 1932 or something like that. Question, yes or no? Were we told to never go back by ETs?
I don't think we have the documentation. It's always been anecdotally reported
Yeah.
by various people, but we've never seen the transcripts. We've never seen the tapes. But it makes sense. I mean, we haven't been back. What is that? 50 some years.
But China went back, didn't? I mean, China
Oh,
went.
no, they never. No manned. There have been no manned missions to the moon that we're
I thought
aware of.
I
That
thought
we're
China
aware
a couple
of.
of years. I thought China a couple of years ago landed on the moon.
No, no.
Or maybe
They had a lunar lander, an automated lunar lander with
Oh, okay, not manned.
no,
Okay.
no, but they're planning on. They are probably going to beat us to the moon. Now the question is, or more importantly, what we think we know may not have anything to do with the realities that we face. Other words, we may have been on the moon since the 1950s. There was actually a plan in place by the Army to not only the type of missile rockets that they're going to have to build, that they did end up building. The Saturn was what came out of the original design work. And that was the rocket that put the men on the moon in July of 1969. So if we had the means and of course the resources, the money, we could probably have put people on the moon. The plan was to have 12 military people stationed on the moon permanently. And what they were supposed to be doing, this is 1960s. And what the plan was, they were going to monitor activities on Earth because there was what better place to do that, supposedly. So if that was true, if we were going to do it, perhaps the Russians were going to do it. Now, the Russians were reportedly tried to land a man on the moon, and supposedly they expired there. If they did land, it was not successful, and they may find a body that's been there for 50 some years. So it was a space race, and everybody, it was a high stakes, and it was prestige and everything else like that. That's the reason it took place. So just food for thought. Anything can happen. Don't be surprised about anything that comes out. More and more things are coming out, as we move along, coming from strange places.
About Elon Musk's plans to be on the moon. How does that fit into this?
Oh, well, the moon's just a way station for him. He's on his way to Mars.
Right, right. And he's skipping the moon and going to Mars.
He's being he was contracted by NASA to provide the means of getting people to the moon. Now there are two missions. NASA has their mission, and that one's kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit because they had so much trouble with their the command module that was going to get them to the moon. They had trouble. They couldn't even send it back to Earth. They had gas leaks and everything else on it. So that was pretty much a snafu. Musk, on the other hand, he has a much simpler approach. It remains to be seen whether he's going to be able to get men to the moon, or even it's wise to, going to Mars, you don't go straight to Mars. I think the plan is you land on the moon, you use resources that are available on the moon, helium-3, abundance of helium-3. There's also water on the moon. So a lot of the things that you might need to survive and maybe build, even manufacture components that will take you to the next step. That is something that they've been talking about as well. A lot of resources on the moon.
Hmm.
I don't know if that answered your question, but
Oh yeah, no, it does. It does. It helps. All these little pieces add up.
yeah. Bruce, okay, Bruce, I see you out there. Bruce Cornett.
Yes.
What are the minerals that we can be looking for on the moon? That we can manufacture things?
Well, most of it is very basic minerals that we also find in volcanic areas here on Earth. So all of those particular minerals would be
Well,
available.
the
Okay.
water you can break down to hydrogen and oxygen. So you got your oxygen, you got hydrogen, which is
A fuel.
a fuel. I think cars should really be doing that, releasing oxygen and burning hydrogen.
I have
Actually, I think they're coming up with something much better than that, even, John.
Yeah.
I have some bad news for those over Elon Musk.
Yeah. Well, Elon Musk, he may not be the one that makes the breakthrough. So there were so many things. Tonight, I was hoping to get into some of the more esoteric things. For instance, about 2 years ago, there was an organization called LIGO. Don't ask me what the acronym stood for, but it was a consortium of radio telescopes and astrophysicists that have been pursuing the Holy Grail, and that was to observe waves of gravity in space. Now, we all know gravity exists. There's no question about that. But they've never been able to observe a wave of gravity until 2 years ago. And then what they did, by using several radio telescopes, they were able to look at specific types of black holes. And they were basically black holes that were orbiting around one another. And by observing them and taking petabytes of data, they were finally able to observe the actual waves of gravity. Now, to me, the thing that jumped out about that was this may be a way of navigating interstellar space. Okay. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more things as well. Now, about 60 years ago, there was a scientist that posited that if we could cross gravity waves, it would release immense amounts of energy. I don't know where the theory came from, but we've never been able to try it because we've never been able to observe the gravity waves. Perhaps that's something that may be in scope now. So if
But
you
Joe,
go ahead.
Joe, I thought that gravity increases with mass.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you have gravity waves just flying through space? Like what's creating the gravity?
Well, 20%, we know 20% of the known universe is mass. Okay. Now that leaves about 75 to 80% that we're not exactly sure what it is. It could be dark energy or dark matter.
Mhm.
Again, it has to equal 100% at some point in time.
Right.
So if you have 20% of that mass and you can actually measure these waves throughout the entire universe, the known universe, it permeates everything.
But once,
That's not touched by it.
but all the gravity, for example, like Earth's gravity at a certain spot, it ends. That's where our satellites are. You know, they put them exactly so they don't fly away, but also so they don't drop. So that's the gravity. You know, Jupiter's is a little further out, you know, but I don't know how.
Talking about the Grange points, right?
I don't know what I'm talking about, but when you get out into the middle of space, I understand how there could be gravity there.
We always think of gravity is because it's not that gravity keeps us on the Earth. It's just that the Earth sucks.
It spins. I think it's
anyway,
a centrifugal force.
But the gravity, okay, the waves of gravity, because space and time. I was kind of hoping Jack Sarfati would join us tonight because I'm sure he would be happy to explain this in great detail.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we're talking quantum physics. Quantum physics, I know I don't understand much about it, other than how to spell quantum. That's about the extent of it for me. But the thing is, quantum physics has an explanation for all of this. And what they're doing is they're looking at things. Matter of fact, maybe the thing to do is defer to Bruce Cornett here. Bruce, you want to weigh in on gravity?
Oh no. All I can say is that Sarfati has called me his Whittington for reverse Doppler. You've heard me talk about that before.
Yeah.
But Whittington was able to confirm Einstein's concept of gravity, that it will bend light. And he showed that was true. One thing I wanted to bring up here is I had an interesting conversation with Scott Stride. You heard of him? Scott Stride? He works for JPL.
No, not a fan. No.
Okay. He engineered the telecommunication system and for the Mars rover. He was fundamental in that on Mars.
What
Mars rover.
Oh,
He
okay.
was the engineer that made the telecommunication system work for the Mars rover.
Okay.
And we had an interesting conversation about Mars. And he told me some things. And I've never heard this come from anybody else. And my suspicion is that it's classified information that he may have shared with me, because NASA's now opening up and releasing more information than we've ever had. They're no longer, trying to knock people down who say that there are artifacts and artificial structures on Mars. But what he told me is that we cannot go to Mars. That's what I meant by a disappointment for Elon Musk, because it's poisonous. The soil is very poisonous to humans.
Radioactive.
And not just radioactive, but the elements within it. You can't grow earth plants in the soils from Mars. So how are we going to survive on Mars unless we bring our own soils?
Yeah, that's an interesting problem. That maybe goes back to because they also found large quantities or large concentrations of a radioactive element.
Xenon 128, I believe it, or 129.
Right, and it only comes from a nuclear explosion.
Yes,
So
that's where John Brandenburg comes up with his idea that Mars was intentionally nuked. And I mentioned to him, I asked him, what was the date? Because he should be able to age date that nuclear explosion based on the isotopes. And he says, yes, it's 500 million, 510 million years ago.
wow.
And that's not long ago. And compared to the Phanerozoic, which is 530 million years old. And I said, wait a minute, you're telling me that Mars was nuked right after we had all of this, the Cambrian explosion of life in the seas, all these weird creatures, multi-legged creatures, from trilobites to scorpion predators roaming the ocean bottom, and they just came out of nowhere. Because up to that point, you only had jellyfish in the oceans. And I said, is it possible that life that is part of the Cambrian explosion was seeded from Mars before they nuked it?
Interesting. Okay, now 500 million years, and our sun is 4.5 billion years old.
Right.
Young. And that puts Earth somewhere in the 4 billion year range itself, right?
Right.
Okay, so that means we have another 3 or 4 billion years before it's lights out for life on Earth, essentially. So
none of us are going to be around to see it, unless Joel Lewis is correct in his new book, The Soul Trap, which he says the ETs are are collecting our souls and causing us to be reincarnate here on Earth. So we've all been here before.
Okay. Well, now also, isn't there a strong belief that we may be the Martians?
I was going to go there because putting that on the table is not crazy at all. That if there was that nuclear huge devastation and some escaped, by that time they would have had ways of doing that and landed here. That can you imagine how that changes everything?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And you do know that that young Russian that came out and said that he remembers having lived on Mars in a previous lifetime.
Now the poison, I mean, that we can't go there and live. We can visit, but we have to bring our stuff with us, and when that stuff runs out, we have to leave, right?
Picnic baskets. We have to bring picnic baskets.
Yes.
Big picnic baskets. Well, the thing is that, well, okay, now let me throw this out. Over the years, ever since we've been going to Mars, and it's been tough. That's a tough trip. We've had our failures trying to land on Mars and get into orbit around Mars and so on, as have the Russians. The Russians have had probably more failures in that area than we have. Now, one of the objects that they had coming from Phobos, I believe, looked like a gigantic, almost like the slab from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Right.
And they had a picture of this thing coming towards, I think it was the Russian spacecraft that was in orbit, and it was trying to get a better look at Phobos. And the thing came right up and it wiped out the Russian satellite. It actually hit it and destroyed it. Now the question is, why is that a major base, or was Phobos a major base? Because there's a pyramid or something on Phobos as well that looks like it kind of looks like it's out of place, and it's a gigantic tower. Anybody else see that? Or
Yes, I've seen that picture.
so I mean, if they're on the moon and they're telling us not to come to the moon, and they're on Mars and they've been kind of just trying to dissuade us from going to Mars, I'd say that that's a pretty strong indication that they really don't want us going into space.
Well, you are familiar with the towers on the moon, aren't you? Are you not?
Oh, yeah, the spires, also the radar dishes, and matter of fact, Ken Johnson, I'm sorry, Ken Johnson, he became kind of a curator of the photographs that were brought back during the Apollo missions, and he got them before they were doctored, okay, before they were airbrushed or touched up. And he put out a book. His book has a number of those pictures in it. He didn't put everything out there, but they're very, very compelling pictures showing even compounds where you have multiple buildings and you have various objects like antenna. A lot of that stuff he's got pictures of that were taken during the Apollo missions. Now,
Oh, yeah.
this goes back to what we were talking about before. There has been talk, and I believe it was Colonel Corso mentioned in the book that Bill Burns wrote, that they had plans for putting men on the moon back in the 1960s. Very detailed plans, even had drawings, sketches of what they were planning on putting up there. So, either we have things that are up there that we never found out about, or it's a combination, them and us, and maybe we're in cahoots with them. So who knows? There are so many different aspects of this and so many different arguments. Each one has its own compelling story. Different species. We're aligned with one and against the others. So who knows where the truth lies? We have not gotten that yet. All we get is anecdotal stories. Interesting, fun, but it's not the smoking gun that we're all looking for.
I've
Any
got
comments?
another,
Yeah,
just a quick thought, but it does relate to some degree, and I'll put it under the title Supply and Demand. And this is what I recently read, that there are plans to go, and I don't remember where uh, in space, that they've tested and found out that there are precious metals and diamonds in places, diamonds bigger than you can imagine, and precious metals, and here it comes, including huge deposits of gold. Now, why would that be interesting? Because right now, with the economy all over the world, all the governments and all the people with a little bit of money are buying gold, right? Because
right.
that's the stable thing. However, if you're going to bring mountains of gold to back, the price of gold is going to plummet.
Comment.
Did you see anything like that? Anybody?
Well, I know, no, they do know from various probes that they've been somehow able to determine some of these asteroids are rich in gold and diamonds and various other precious metals and whatnot. And there are plans to go up there and mine them. But the one thing, if there is tons and tons and tons of gold, don't look for them to bring back massive amounts of it. They'll bring back enough to make a profit on. Otherwise, they're going to be cutting their own throat. Like you said, the price of everything will plummet. So you can't upset the apple cart. Well, there's actually more, there's more gold in the ocean than ever been discovered on land.
Never heard that. Wow.
Oh, yeah, it's massive amounts of gold, but you have to, it'll cost you in order to mine enough of it or to produce enough of it to make it worthwhile.
Are you talking about gold on the floor of the ocean or gold
No,
dissolved in the sea?
dissolved in the gold. Gold came about from a supernova. Okay, gold is probably any place a supernova is hit. There's probably gold deposits in there. So at least this is one of the theories that I've heard. Has it been proven out yet? Well, I knew about the gold. That's been talked about for probably 50 years or more. How much gold there is in the ocean, you know. But again, getting that's the hard part. Or even getting it from an asteroid, how much money you have to spend in order to get the mining equipment up there and all that. Eventually it'll happen when we have teleportation or whatever. Then it'll maybe become more of a cost-effective endeavor.
Well, we have a ways of desalinating seawater, and that's how we get fresh water in various areas of the country. Why haven't the manufacturers wanted to extract the gold from the solids that they pull out of the seawater?
Well, let me give you an answer that affected me directly from desalinization. Every ship that goes to sea has desalination, they have evaporators. And what they'll do, they'll take seawater in, they'll evaporate it and separate the salts from the, and that's where we get our drinking water from. Well, the problem was when I was anchored at the mouth of the Sanondak River in Vietnam, they were spraying all this Agent Orange. And of course, Agent Orange is loaded with dioxins. And the dioxins wash down the rivers when the rains and everything wash it into the rivers, and they flow down to the ocean. And when our evaporators brought the water in, they work great. They're great at taking solids, salt and things like that out, but they have no effect on dioxins. Consequently, a lot of us were impacted by the dioxins in our drinking water, even though in theory we should have had clean drinking water, you know. So as far as taking everything out or separating everything, my guess is that you can be using membranes but again, how many passes do you have to make? To me, it's probably going to be a somewhat complicated process of like distilling until you get exactly what you're looking for.
Well, here in El Paso, we now are tapping into the brines at depth, and they have to have reverse osmosis in order to extract the fresh water to supply the people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's salt being taken out of water, that's one thing. But getting and only taking the minerals that you're looking for. How many minerals are in a gallon of water? how many different, what are the concentrations of them and everything. I don't know. I'm not a chemist, and that's way out of my league. But my guess is that there's a lot out there, and if you want to target specific things like gold or platinum or whatever it might be, each one has a different atomic mass, and you have different ways of.
Of course, in New Jersey, one of the biggest problems of extracting water from the ground is arsenic.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of arsenic in the groundwater in New Jersey.
Yeah, I believe it. Probably because of all of it. The granite, the granite helps
Right.
concentrate it or whatever.
Yes. Well, more likely because of the playa lakes that existed in the Newark Basin, which takes up at least a third of the area of New Jersey.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and arsenic's not good for you. So
I remember a few weeks ago, I was flipping through the stations, and I came across one of those shows where the guys are digging for gold, and they were diving through ice, like I guess it was Alaska, and they were finding gold, big chunks of gold on the floor of the ocean.
Oh yeah, yeah, gold nuggets. I mean, back in the early gold rush days, they used to find that stuff pretty easily, and they weren't small. They were pretty massive.
Yeah.
Wherever they find, well, again, who knows what's on the bottom? I mean, they were talking about mining magnesium nodules or manganese nodules off the ocean floor. Ostensibly, but what they were really doing, they were going to raise a sunken Russian submarine, and that was a cover story for a spy versus spy type of event. So a lot of interesting things out there. I mean, when at the antenna where I give tours and operate the antenna, when kids come in with their parents, I always show them a meteorite, and it's a little chunk of iron that was burned, and it came from Crater National Park in Arizona. And I said, look, if you want a nice hobby, a fun hobby, and I said, get yourself a little pail and a shovel and go out and learn about the science of meteorites. They're all over the place. And I said, by the way, this will make your parents happy. We paid $950 for that little chunk of iron right there. So I mean, that's how easy it is to find that type of stuff, but you have to know what you're looking for. Or if you want to cheat, you can take a white sheet of paper and scotch tape it to a table, an outdoor table, leave it overnight, and when you come out in the morning, you'll find a fine coating of dust on it. And that's usually meteorite dust. Okay. So anyway, that's my science talk for tonight. So
That's very interesting. Will that happen down in Florida also?
well, I'm sorry, what's that?
Will that meteorite dust happen anywhere in the world?
It happens all over the world. I mean, we're constantly being bombarded by meteorites, meteor dust. It's just all over the place.
Wow.
The big chunks that are meaningful, like you can even find a chunk of gold if you're lucky, or a diamond even. Matter of fact, there was a knife that was buried with King Tut, and that knife was actually the iron or steel. It was a very, very high grade, and it was made into a dagger.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
You're right.
Yeah, and that was from a meteorite. So that's the type things that you can come across if you know what you're looking for. The most interesting meteor in the past 20 or 30 or 40 years was the meteor that landed in the Arctic, and it was a meteor from Mars. And when they cracked it open, they found evidence, supposed evidence of microscopic animals. Okay. That were embedded in this meteor that came all the way from Mars and finally made it to Earth. So,
but Joe, don't they announce those things right before they're looking for funding for some sort of project? I remember that one. Then right after that, they were looking. Yeah, they wanted funding.
Actually, that is true. I mean, if you want to get funding, you gotta shake everybody up to a point, and
yeah,
they'll rush to give you another $1 billion or two. But
Clinton did that.
There, though, I mean, it was a real artifact. Now, whether or not, I mean, they didn't have DNA in it, I don't think, but they did find fossilized remains.
Microbes.
Shell. Yeah. Yeah.
Was that Clinton who did that, or was that he did it with some other piece that was
It
found
It
in
was
there?
part of his um, term in the White House.
Yeah, he was in there. Yeah, that was they just do that to get funding. You know, it's everything is
So guess
nothing.
where they found it?
But that was real, John. I mean,
Okay,
Guess where they found that Mars meteorite? In
in
Antarctica,
Antarctica.
Antarctica.
Yeah,
sitting on the ice.
because they rate it for some reason those things come up and they're on the surface with the ice.
I mean, eventually, maybe something else will show up, and you know, and everything will, everything will be made known to us. So
Yeah. Hey, Joe, I've also said like it's very possible for a meteor to hit the Earth and, not a big one, something small. And then, when the crust breaks away, it could be a giant diamond and you would see the price of diamonds drop.
yeah, exactly. Well, the secret is what you do. You have it worked. You cut all these perfect stones,
Yeah.
and as you need a little money, you take a couple of them, take them into the diamond district in New York, sell them for wholesale price. You're still going to be a millionaire.
Yeah. Well, then you charge more.
But you don't want to dilute the market.
Yeah, well, you charge more because it came from out of space.
1 ounce of gold, $3,500 about. 1 ounce of gold is going up and up and up.
You want to hear the dirty little secret about that?
Sure.
Okay, back in 1915, a troy ounce of gold was, I think, $33.
So what we're saying is that
well, okay, well, there's a method to the story that is surprising. That $33 value of gold would also buy you one fine men's suit. That's what a fine men's suit cost back then. Now, fast forward to today, that $3,500 troy ounce of gold, guess what it'll buy you?
A fine suit.
One fine men's suit. That's exactly right. And what that is, that far outpaces. Remember, the Federal Reserve Bank only works because they plan on inflation, but they control inflation. Their target is 2 to 3, maybe 4% a year. And the reason they do that is because banks make money only by lending money. And the bankers make their money by the interest that's charged. Now, the problem is, if you want to have a war, like let's take World War II, for instance. World War II cost the equivalent of maybe, say, $1 trillion, the equivalent back in 1940s money. Well, guess what? You can't tax for that. There is not enough money to tax to cover the cost of a major war like that. So what do? The government goes to the Federal Reserve and they borrow the money. They borrow it and they say, yes, we'll pay you back. But guess what? The bank doesn't care whether they get back the principal. All they want is the interest on the loan, because that's how they're making their money. And that's all paid back through inflation. So the hidden tax is inflation. So if you get runaway inflation like back in Carter's years, what was it, 16, 17, 18%? Well, guess what? You were being taxed, and that money was going back to the Federal Reserve to pay for all the goodies that the government borrows to give away or to use for fighting or whatever. True story. You can check it out. It's the Federal Reserve. There's a great book. It was written by, what's his name? I'll send it.
RFK.
No, it's the guy. Oh God, I forgot his name escapes me right now. But it's all about the Federal Reserve. It's Creature. The book is called Creature from Jekyll Island. Read it. It's an eye opener. You won't believe what you're going to learn from that book, and it ain't what they taught you in school. Okay.
I wonder what's in Fort Knox right now. I wonder if Fort Knox.
Knox. Yes. For about 50 years now, there have been people in Congress screaming that we have to audit the Fed to find out whether or not there is really gold in Fort Knox or in Liberty Street there in New York. They had massive amounts of gold in the basement of Liberty Street as well.
I visited that when I was working in Wall Street. I went there, and at that time they let us down, and you could see the incredible mountain. Now that
Yeah.
was a long time ago, so
Yeah.
who knows?
But
Did
that
it look like? Did it look like it was like just painted gold or real gold?
yeah,
It looked to me like painted.
Goldfinger.
It did look like it looked like bricks of painted gold. It did
Yeah,
look
like-
like that, but who
And then
knows?
they just used those in the Goldfinger movie, so they brought it over there.
But if you look closely, you'll see there are countries' names. They have cards with countries' names.
Yeah.
Countries actually had their gold reserve, some of their gold reserves here. A lot of those countries back in 2008, they repatriated their gold. China, Russia, they were all asking for their gold back because they were all going to create a currency that was gold based. And of course, our idiots did away with gold. So
Yeah.
we
Hey,
have
Joe,
nothing, we have nothing
does it-
underpinning our money.
does everybody on the call know that the conference is October 4th in Bucks County, Sheridan?
Okay. Has anybody seen that? I sent out some information to this list. We'll be sending it out again to make sure everybody does know about it. It's going to be
Why is it the
one.
last one? I read that it was the last one in that area. Well, why is this the last?
Well, here's the thing. MUFON doesn't want to do it. I started this conference in 2008. I actually paid for the first conference, and I paid for all the equipment we bought. But MUFON doesn't want to do it. And I don't think we should just walk away. So, it's a 500-mile round trip for me to drive from Pittsburgh to the conference. So I said, look, let's put a closure to it, do a final one, and that'll be it. But, if the crowd shows up, we can do another one, next year. My biggest problem is we don't have anybody that can go to the airport. Nobody in Pennsylvania is helping us. All the guys that are helping, Joe and the guys on this call that are speaking or helping, they're all New Jersey guys. Nobody, and I'm not driving to the Philly airport. So as long as I can get people to drive in and speak, and I've got people for next year, if the crowd shows up this year, Linda Zimmerman, Larry Arnold, with the spontaneous human combustion, there's enough people who don't have to fly in, locally. We could do one more. I don't know if I could do any more than that, after next year. But we'll
John,
see how.
why did MUFON say goodbye? Why did that happen in the first place?
Because they're mismanaged. They're retarded, to be honest with you. It's like I did 45 of these conferences and made them $35,000 clear after all the expenses. And then January of this year, and it's a little longer of a story, but what happened was last year, I brought in Joe Jordan to speak at the Pittsburgh conference. Now, Joe Jordan is, he was the MUFON South Korea country manager for MUFON. He just moved back to the U.S. He wrote a book on the demonic side of alien abduction. So I had always promised him that I was going to have him speak. So I brought him in to speak. And he's very, spiritual, religious, etc. And it was the MUFON investigators, not the crowd. The MUFON investigators, one in particular got in my face after the Q&A and said, "That was terrible. Don't you ever bring religion into a UFO conference." I just laughed because these people don't know what they're talking about. If you believe anything that's supernatural, anything, interdimensional, you're talking, there's a religious aspect to it. But it was a good event. We had a big crowd. And so come January, that was in November, come January, we have a meeting here. And they said, "We don't want you running the conferences anymore. We don't want you picking the speakers." I said, "Why not?" Well, they said, well, because you talk about the demonic side of it, and then you brought that Joe Jordan in, who's talking about God and demons, and I said, well, that is one of the 12 explanations to UFOs. You know, even all this research I'm doing now on the Hollow Earth, it's the same thing. They're saying the same thing. They got you looking up because that's where they want you to look. Look down. That's where the crafts come from. They're under the ocean. They're under the underground. They're in caves, mountains, that type of stuff. So that's basically what happened. So, you know, I've never screwed MUFON over. So, you know, I said, okay, look, you guys want to run it? Go ahead. I said, I'll still help you. You know, you go find a hotel, and you know, I'll look the contract over. You know, I'll do whatever I can. I'll do the website because I run the website. I do the advertising through MailChimp. I said, I'll still do that for you. Not that they would ever do that for me. So Fred says, well, you run the Facebook page, you know, the MUFON PA Facebook page. We want to run it. I said, go ahead. Well, you know, I didn't know he was going to cut me out at that point. He says, we need this other guy to be on there as an admin because it's just you and me. I said, okay, you approved him. I put him on. It was the 6 seconds after I put him on, they deleted me as an admin. So it's like, you know, I've never done anything to screw you. I've done all this work over 20 years to help MUFON. I never once did anything, you know, that you would think I'm dishonest or against you. And that's the first thing they do. So they said, we're going to run it. And we're okay. It's 8 months into it. I called John Doucette up and I said, well, where's your conference? You know, I'm waiting to help you advertise. He says, well, nobody stepped up to run it. And we're not having one this year. And then the more I thought about it, I said, well, I don't want to just let Bucks County, after 18 times going there, just fade away into the night. I told them I'm going to run it under my LLC, String Theory of the Unexplained, and we'll run it and I'll pay for it. And that'll be that. So that's what we're doing. But I don't, be honest with you, I don't think they're ever going to do a conference. And if they do, they're going to screw it up because they have no clue what they're doing. But they all got big chests and big ideas that we're going to do this and we're going to do it better than you. I said, yeah, I don't think you're going to do it better than me. I don't think anybody can run a conference better than me because I've proved it already. I ran 2 MUFON symposiums and put them together. So that's whatever. They're going to do it, and they're not ever going to do it. So we'll see.
I've been trying to seek the first part of the trying to get a conference in Manhattan.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that for
And
May.
I've been looking. There's a couple of leads I need to follow up on, and I really want to do it. I just wanted to say that this is something I really want to do. As far as the speakers, there's some, as you guys know, there's incredible people with knowledge that the public needs to know who they are and what they're saying. So, and I was shocked that Manhattan has never had anything quite like that before. So
Probably
anyhow,
'cause
for what it's worth, and the bottom line is one of my members of Disclosure Network New York, now in the 28th year of doing a meeting every month in Manhattan, one of our members contacted me and she said, I'll contribute money for the place. I mean, how wonderful is that? That's
yeah.
kind of support. So it's only one person who said that so far, but it's still my ambition to do a conference here in Manhattan.
Yeah, the problem with Manhattan is the costs. You know, I don't know what they get for a ballroom, even a small room that only holds like 200. You know, you're probably going to pay $2,000. I don't know what, you know, the sleeping rooms are going to be $250, $300. Yeah, I don't know. You have to really pick out a, no, even if you don't do it in Manhattan, you could do it one or the other. You could do it in Queens. I don't know. But it's just, I think the costs there become a big issue. And then you probably have union labor. You know, that's why we never did the MUFON Symposium in Philadelphia. We were supposed to do it in Philadelphia, but as I started looking at hotels, I said, Jan, I mean, this is, you know, Jan Harzan. I said, you're going to pay so much more doing it in Philly. And he says, well, where could we do it? I said, well, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. It's right across the road there. Um, I used to go to one of the Comic Cons or horror cons there. I don't even remember the name of the hotel. That's where we did it. We ended up doing it there. But isn't it funny how I've always helped these people, and the minute they can turn on me, they do. You know, it's just I just sit back sometimes. And say, it's incredible. The number of people I helped, and then the first chance they got to screw me, they did.
Yeah.
So,
It
but I
always
don't.
pays to carry a Tommy gun with you at all times.
Yeah, yeah, but it's just amazing because that's like the eighth commandment, about false accusations and slander and all of that.
Yeah,
But
you never go after a volunteer.
yeah, it's like I don't understand. I made you $35,000. That's not good enough, So how much did you make this year? Nothing. So I don't know. I just sit back and laugh. But you know what it did? It caused me to make my own LLC. I think it's a cool name, String Theory of the Unexplained. So I'll run this myself now with your help over there in Bucks County. But the one by my house is 6 miles away. I got all my political friends that help me, mostly the women. And we ran it in April. We're going to run it in April again. And, so this will either be the last one in Bucks or, I'm kind of thinking if the crowd shows up, we get at least 100 people, then we can do another one next year. If you guys want to help me, because I can't do it alone.
Well, we'll look and see what we can find, see what might make sense. Stanley Mizemic, haven't heard from you tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. I got a few topics to talk about.
Hey, shoot.
Okay, first of all, let's start with the desalinization. About 20 years ago or so, I have a place down in Aruba. We had the opportunity of visiting a desalinization plant. From front to back, had a great tour, my wife, myself, and our sister-in-law, Patty. We didn't find any gold, so I could be upfront with that, gentlemen. So I'm not too sure where you're hearing the gold's coming from, but in the Caribbean around Aruba, no gold. Okay, number one. Number two, regarding diamonds and their value. A meteor hit Russia way back when, and they came up with a lot of diamonds. Uh, Truckloads, actually, and De Beers heard about it, ran up there and said, if you put them in the market, we got a problem. So I think they made a deal. And nowadays you have artificial diamonds anyway, and they're kind of hard to tell each other apart. So you might have to think about that also regarding diamonds and whatever else have you. Now, the other thing, which is bringing you guys up to 2025, is currently NASA and a whole other group is tracking a speeding object coming towards us at about 135,000 miles an hour. Now then, they're supposed to arrive here between November 21st and December 5th, so you keep your days open. Some person said it's a meteor. It is not. It has no tail. A professor in Harvard said this is possibly a visitor. Now we have another one sitting off around Saturn, which is about 22 to 27 miles long. It could be a mothership, and we're not too sure about what's happening, but I think you should keep those days open, gentlemen. And the other thing too, if you're paying attention, and I know I am, the planet is getting warmer and warmer and warmer each and every year. So I know you guys are thinking about 2030 or 2035. That's going to be a maybe. I mean, if we keep on going the way we're going, there's no going to be no 2035, because like we said about 5 or 10 years ago, and I am a member of the media, it's getting too hot. And to just give you an idea, I do a lot of growing. This year, no tomatoes. That's not a crisis, but each and every year we had something. This year was like garden was like non-existent because of the heat in the summertime. So that's also to be kind of a thought in mind where we're actually going with this planet. Now, another thing was brought up also. Are we them in an outer shell? Think about it. Is that possible? Now, our technology is what we see. The technology which could be out there, which we have no idea, is far advanced than it will ever be. The US government is probably 60 years ahead of us, and we're just kind of like looking at it from a viewpoint of like, duh. So let's think about 60 years ahead, Area 51, and what they're accomplishing right now. Now, as far as going to the moon, that was the astronauts. They were told, do not show up again, and that's why we didn't show up, quite simply. And theoretically, somebody had mentioned we've been there since 1957. Okay, that's possible too. Once again, what we know, what we're shown, and if you even go on Skinwalker Ranch, that's another opening. Take a look what they've accomplished there. So I think we have to kind of get ourselves into today rather than yesterday. Yesterday is nice to be in a history book, which belongs in the Smithsonian or something to that effect. But today is today, looking forward to tomorrow. What is actually going on out there? And is there a purpose to go to the moon? Not that I'm aware of. Purpose to go to Mars? I can't think of one. They are coming on our planet. And like you said, are they up there? Sure. Down here? Definitely. Are they around us? Yes. Can we see them? No. But if you take a picture with your camera, you can definitely get pictures of UFOs, orbs. They're here. And accept the fact that we need to see them, even though the government and everybody else knows they exist. So something to think about, folks. Is there going to be a future? Are we them right now? And is this world a matrix? I think Bruce Lipton's PhD, you guys don't know who he is, mentioned that this could be an actual matrix, okay? We think of it as reality on what we know, what we've learned. And what we've learned is people telling us from the day we're born, they talk to us, okay? And people just listen to other people tell them. You have to think out of the box, as they said back in the 60s. What else is there to think about? Okay, we keep on listening to everybody. Where are we going to get ourselves? It's when we've kind of discovered something ourselves and nobody realizes what it is. That's a discovery. That's to be looked at. And how do we do it? It's easy. I mean, they took a trip down to Abidjan, Brazil, took a few pictures. You have UFOs down there. If you go to the capital of Brazil, look at all the buildings. They're all shaped like UFOs. Once again, it's the society. Is it there? Are they here? Sure. But what do we take from here? But our new visitors that are coming up, like I said, I gave you the dates already, keep them open. And also that 22 or 27-mile piece of longitude, which is just sitting there, this big rock, that could be a spaceship. It just sits there on one of the rings, not moving. So that's just the quick portion of what I have to offer here. But I think if we consider the fact that they are below us, they're on either side of us, and they're up there, Skinwalker Ranch has already proved it. That's where we are today. So that's my comment.
Okay, who would like to be the first to comment on Stan's comment?
I would.
Okay, go ahead, Bruce.
One of the problems that I have with this global warming fear is that you have to study the ice cores from the last ice ages. And within each interglacial, which lasts for about 21 to 25 million, 5,000 years, they've cored the ice and come up with a record of what happens during the interglacials.
Okay.
And during the last interglacial, the Earth had a period of global warming in the middle of it, a 3,000 to 5,000 year period of global warming,
Okay.
in which the Earth's temperature rose 3 to 5 degrees centigrade for
Right.
3 to 5,000 years.
Right.
And then it cooled off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you go back to previous interglacial, and it happened then, and the one before that. It's a natural cycle that results from the Earth's orbit aligning perfectly with the sun's ecliptic.
Right.
We're within 8 degrees from perfect alignment. And once that happens, the Earth is going to get hot. And
I
it's going to
understand that, but are we going to be around for the people back
Well,
then? No.
Well, if
We're
we
here.
survived from the last interglacial,
we
yeah.
being who?
we'll be around. We'll just have to dig underground and live underground.
That's why I'm
I
researching.
knew that was coming. I knew that was coming.
I'm researching the Hollow Earth, Joe. I mean, the Hopi Indians talk about that with the ant people. That
That's right.
they would have tall grays. That's the way they would describe.
Right.
And during extinction events,
Mhm.
they would take people and bring them underground. And
Right.
there was another group that did that too, or Garther, if you believe in
There
that.
was another group, right?
Tibet, they would during extinction events, the ice age, whatever. I don't know how it helps you during the flood.
Right. But I'm talking
they-
about our
That's
group
another
today.
problem.
I mean,
Yeah.
history is history, obviously. There's nothing wrong with history, but it belongs in a book. Let's talk
Yeah.
about today. Let's talk about tomorrow, 5 or 10 years. That's on the table. Not
Yeah.
history.
Well, I'll tell you. Let me just say one thing. When Biden was in office, and what you said was true about the ice cores, they showing the different gyrations in temperature, highs and lows. They were I read this. They wanted to discredit the whole ice core thing and destroy the ice cores and said they can't be used because it doesn't prove what they were trying to prove. That it's a steady, slow increase, from the beginning, and it's not true. Just like evolution, things happen. Catastrophic stuff was the way this planet was always looked
Right.
at as far as forming. It wasn't millions of years, until Lyell wrote his book, and then Darwin jumped on the theory of millions of years and said the same thing about evolution. But I don't believe either one of those.
There is no evolution.
True.
They found a footprint, carbon dated, next to a lake, 7,000 years old. A
Bruce,
footprint.
Well, guys,
Next to a
guys,
lake.
I hate to break your bubble in terms of the age dating, but I worked on the cores from the Newark Basin, which are a total of 28,000 feet of core that I had to describe.
Where's that located?
Pardon?
Where was it located that you were working?
Across New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, the Newark
Okay.
Basin.
Okay.
It formed between 230 and 190 million years ago.
Okay.
And it was like the East African Rift Lakes that kept on filling up with water and then emptying, become playa desert, and then filling up with water again. And we were able to recognize the individual cycles that formed this whole complex of age dating and be able to get the age of the rocks down to the nearest 10,000 years of what it really was in absolute terms. And you're talking about what, 40 million years of time depositing those. And that's when, right before the Atlantic Ocean opened up. Okay, that's when the Atlantic Ocean formed. And oh, by the way, the mass extinction that was recognized and was recognized by everybody else that occurred at the Triassic-Jurassic boundary, it wasn't caused by a meteorite impact.
I know what it was.
What?
The fall of Satan. When he hit Earth, that was what caused that.
Well, he must have been radioactive because all the fish at that boundary are radioactive.
Okay.
And I analyzed those fishes and came up with cesium-128.
But isn't that a cool idea? That it wasn't an asteroid that hit in the Yucatan. It was the fall of Satan. When in the Bible it says, Jesus says he saw Satan hit Earth like a lightning bolt. Boom!
Good. He got squashed.
no, that's
Anyway,
One more thing I'd like to bring up, gentlemen, also, is our freshwater supply on this planet is slowly diminishing.
Wait, there's 4 times as much water 400 miles under the Earth than there is above.
They talk about the fresh water, not that water, fresh water.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, that's different. No, we have loads of that stuff, but the other stuff is diminishing.
Well, then once we melt the ice, global warming is going to melt it all. We'll have plenty of fresh water.
Yep, and we'll just kind of convert it back to regular water. No problem. We're
And
good.
Lake Vostok.
all I can say is that humans are pretty stupid when it comes to understanding the history of Earth. Because all you have to do is look at what we do know about during the last ice age, and you realize that the Earth wasn't equally. It didn't have ice caps on both North and South poles. Only the North Pole had ice caps. The South Pole was a tropical paradise during the last ice age.
matter of fact, it's fossilized.
But I'm concerned about tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that.
The largest freshwater lake on the planet is Lake Vostok in Antarctica.
It's
And
underwater.
there are ETs living in it too.
Well, if you need water, we can get it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Long
You have
pipeline.
to pay the ETs to get it.
We're just-
They don't need it.
Actually, there's one thing I wanted to ask Bruce about this. Stan, you mentioned about the fossilized footprints
Right.
on the lake.
Yes.
Where? 2 questions for you, Bruce. Where were the footprints along with the prints of the dinosaurs? That was down in Texas, wasn't it?
Oh, you're talking about human footprints along with dinosaur prints. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, in Glen Rose, Texas.
Right. Okay.
That's also where they found the London hammer, as they said it, with the wooden handle is broken and it's coalified, and it's made of a metal, of a very pure metal that we don't make in a manufacturer.
How old was that? That
90 million years.
of coal.
Wow.
That layer of coal.
Well, I mean, it wasn't so a layer of coal. It was that all the wood in the formation is fossilized, and
Right.
it's turned to black coal-like material.
And it was an iron head, though. I mean, the
Yes,
head was iron.
with a lot of aluminum.
But they've also found artifacts in lines of coal, layers of coal.
Right.
Yes,
In
As a matter of
Pennsylvania.
fact, I think they found something in Pennsylvania.
They found it in Pennsylvania, a unique item which was buried in coal, preserved perfectly, and they still don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
Well, they found gold vases and chains in coal deposits too, and they can't explain that.
Really.
well, I can explain it.
Oh,
The astronaut dropped something when he came down here to visit.
Well, they say they say the construction worker dropped a gold chain in, and that wasn't there prior to that. But what about vases and stuff? You hit a coal deposit, there's a gold vase in there.
It's encapsulated in the coal.
Yeah,
Exactly.
in the coal.
It's
Yeah,
encapsulated. Right.
yeah. They just happened to break, and there it was in the coal. So
Well,
I
I'd
say,
like to have you explain human footprints in on the top of basalt flows.
basalt what?
Basalt flows, lava flows.
Oh,
The human
flows.
footprints that actually impressed into the lava and left their imprint. That's pretty amazing when you think about that.
Yeah.
Talk about
Yeah.
somebody who could tolerate a hot foot.
yeah.
So what do you
You have to burn your feet to get away from it.
So what do you think about Mary Schweitzer's discoveries when looking at dinosaur fossils and finding blood cells still in them? Are you familiar
It's
with
very,
that?
very, very possible because preservation is very unequal, and you can have extremes. I've seen
You
some
think
amazing.
millions of years?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, I've extracted some beautiful pollen grains from rocks that have been boiled in hydrofluoric acid. Okay, and then they come out and they look perfectly good.
Yeah, she made a comment that if you take the blood, whatever, you put it on the shelf, like 4 days later, it's all gone or something to that extent. She goes, how could this be 65?
It's the
Yeah,
air.
it deteriorates. Yeah. How could it be 65 million years old? Collagen and blood cells and stuff. She says this, even to be 10,000 years, this had to be recent history. And,
Now, of course, you're getting videos of people of seeing velociraptors in herds running across highways and
Where?
pterodactyls flying in
Where?
the sky in northern Minnesota and
Minnesota.
Wisconsin. Yeah.
Well, the pterodactyls I agree with because when I first moved here in 1997, I had a pair of Dobermans, and in 1999, we were on the deck right outside here, and they were on the deck, and all of a sudden, I heard a screech from that way, pointing towards Route 119 and Route 30, and my Doberman just cowered in the corner by the door. They wanted to come in. They were two 90-pound Dobermans, and I let the door open, let them in. I heard it again. This was the biggest bird you ever want to hear. And then, like the next day in the newspaper, the Tribune Review ran a story that people on 119 and 30 saw a huge bird.
Firebird.
Yeah, 20 foot wingspan minimum.
Well,
so I believe. I believe
We're
that.
starting to come to the realization that
We
there
don't know
are
shit.
interdimensional portals, time
Yeah.
portals.
Yeah.
I agree.
There's too many things that we still don't understand.
A lot.
Nothing would surprise me. Nothing would surprise me.
Well, you take a plane flight, Joe, and as soon as you leave Pittsburgh, look out the window, and in 2 minutes, everything is trees and mountains or whatever. It's who the hell knows what's in there?
Bigfoot's all over there. Just ask Fred.
Yeah, you could have caves with these pterodactyls in there. Who would know? Half of these places, there's
And you know
nobody.
what a velociraptor looks like? Well, to think of Jurassic Park, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah, and they're smart too.
I wouldn't want to run into those because they hunt in a pack, just like
Yes.
wolves. Yeah.
Mindy Gerber, we haven't heard from you tonight. What do you got?
I'm just listening. I'm sorry. I got accidentally out of the meeting and had trouble finding a link to get back in. I'm so sorry. I missed like almost an hour, but
Well, it's
no, I
recorded.
don't have anything new to add.
Yeah, I wonder what happened that silenced Mindy. Yes.
I'm so sorry about that. No, I don't have anything new to add. I'm just getting some interesting emails from Kerry Cassidy. What is it? The 3-Eye Atlas
Oh,
or
3-Eye
something?
Atlas. Yeah. Yeah, actually, Anne mentioned that. That's an object that is moving at a high rate of speed. It's from outside our solar system. So, and it's heading, interestingly, it'll be in October. It'll be heading behind the sun. So its closest approach, we will not be able to see it. The thing is that it exhibits an interesting, instead of having a plume in behind it like a comet would have, it has some type of illumination in the front of it facing the sun. So they say it's not a comet, but they don't know exactly what it is. So they're going to have to wait until they can get more readings on it, and then
It has to get closer.
Yeah.
November 21st to December 5th.
Yeah.
Is it solar powered? Is it
No,
solar?
they don't. They don't know.
They don't know. They don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you
Uh,
said
there
it has
might there might be license plates. There might be a license plate on it. You don't know.
Yeah.
I love.
Well, the
I love.
interesting thing, it's in the same plane as the Earth.
Thank
So-
you, Nick. We needed
Yeah.
that.
The license plate is not going to say "I love New York." I can tell you that.
Sorry
Good
about
point.
that, Nick.
Good
That's
point.
okay. If it gets
Very
too
good
close, we'll
point.
put a tariff on it. No
It's going to
problem.
be a license plate that says "Humans go home."
We've
We
been
were here
told
first.
that before.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. Like Stan said, I think there were 3 objects. Of course, the Oumuamua, that was the first one. They're now saying that that was probably not an alien object in the sense that an intelligent one. But they don't know about the next 2. There's one giant one, like Stan
Right.
mentioned, is orbiting Jupiter.
Right. It's out there.
Saturn.
It's kind of hanging out right now.
Yeah, just hanging out there, and it's interesting. So what we're doing, we're turning our James Webb telescope on it, so we should be able to get some type of reading as to the nature of it. So that's the
Where
cool
did-
thing about the James Webb telescope.
Right.
We can see
Hey,
things
hey,
that
Nick,
we've never seen before.
hey, Nick Curto, can you send the poster for the Philly conference to your group there? That group in New York that meets?
I've done it twice.
Oh, okay, good. Thanks.
I'm going to do it again. Don't worry. I'm on that.
You got to remind them the week of.
Nick
You
is
know, you
always
guys-
on it.
All right.
Where did Oumuamua go?
Hawaii.
There's Mindy. There's 2 Mindys. There's a Mindy and then there's another Mindy. That's very scary, Mindy. Very scary.
Is MILG Mindy?
No, that's Millie.
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 Is
And
that a
then there's-
clone? Maybe it's
There's also an MORK.
Mindy and Mark.
Mork and Mindy.
Yes.
No,
Thank
I'm not
you.
Mindy. I'm
Thank you, John.
Millie.
Millie Vanilli.
Yes, there you go. So what I was thinking, like when Oumuamua passed by, now this other one, the A1's coming. Maybe they're chasing. Maybe A1 is chasing Oumuamua.
I think they're heading in different directions.
They're heading in
Oh,
different
are they?
directions. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're going different ways.
Yeah,
All
but
right.
I saw
the argument is, if they are extraterrestrial, they could be sending out small drones to do
Right.
their exploration. Now, actually, truth be told, since we all believe that they've been here for a long, long time, This just may be a new crew coming in, and they may have to be starting from scratch, learning about what we are and who we are. So
I saw a
if they're
cartoon.
Good luck.
I saw
they're
this
sent-
cartoon, and the
if there's
cartoon was in a spaceship, and there were two aliens, and they had the view of the Earth in front of them, and one of them said to the other alien, "Step on it. That's the last planet we want to go to."
well,
And you
if
know
they're
what?
I'm gonna
There's
stop
good
there.
reason. There is good reason for them to look at what's going on this planet. Would you want to live? Would you want to visit this planet? I don't think so. Not at the moment.
Not right
it
now.
makes
We're
it
all
makes
trying to figure out how to get off of it ourselves.
It's
it makes
exactly. I mean, there's some truth to that. There is.
it makes good entertainment for them though. But if they're launching drones, let's get a message to them, send a few to Ukraine and help them out.
Well, we need some help, that's for sure. We do.
Yeah. Okay, we got user out there too. Who's user? User, would you like to participate?
That's
Hello,
probably
user.
that's a MUFON spy.
Hello, user.
Run.
Are you there? Okay, going once, going twice. Okay. Also, let's see. Will, you're there too.
Hey, can you delete user?
I could delete anybody. But
Delete them. I think you should delete them, Joe, because we should know who's on our call.
okay, well, actually, I kind of like keeping everybody around
All right.
just in case. Yeah, we'll find out soon enough. We see something bad said about tonight.
Yeah. We made fun of Hawaiians with a muamua.
Maybe it's an alien.
Could be.
Will, what about you, Will? You want to join? Will, are you there? I know you're there.
Will Robinson.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to badger people. Anybody wants to participate, you're welcome to participate. You can throw out anything you'd like to talk about. We'll give it due diligence. Okay.
And we'll make fun of it too.
And we'll make fun of it too. Millie, what do you got? Got anything else?
Not at this moment. Oh, I did want to ask John about the Kecksburg thing. What were you saying about it about a Russian satellite? Are you saying that the Kecksburg Bell was a Russian satellite?
Well, no, I say it's not. I say it's a U.S. satellite launched out of Johnson's Island, the GE Mark II reentry vehicle. But what I discovered just this week in somebody else's podcast, I'm watching it. It's like a 20-minute podcast, and 11 minutes in, it starts talking about John Ventry's theory. But he found some extra research that in 1964, there was a project 437 that the government created to use satellites to spy on Russia. I didn't know that. I didn't come across that when I was researching this 10 years ago. So I looked it up, and yeah, there it is. So 1964, we started this thing using satellites. 1965 is Kecksburg, and it just matches up that it was really a spy satellite that came down in Kecksburg. That's why they wore radiation suits. They carried a lead box into the woods. People saw blue arcing. It glowed green coming in because it had a copper alloy heat shield. They said it looked like a four-pointed star because it had four jets on it, for high altitude navigating. Everything about it matched up to these satellites. So, yeah, I think we explained it, but that's not what they want to hear at the Kecksburg Festival.
But didn't it look like a bell with Egyptian hieroglyphs on it?
Yeah, it absolutely looked like Die Glock, that acorn bell shape.
Right.
And that's what it was the satellite, what a satellite looks like.
Yeah.
5.5 feet high, 5.5 feet wide. And similar looking to the bell, Die Glock. Die Glock is not as wide, it's probably a little narrower, high and narrower, but it was not Cosmos 96, absolutely. Even though the guy who ran the Army officer that ran the whole thing in Kecksburg he said he was told it was the Russian satellite. And that's what they told him because they didn't want him to know it was a spy satellite. But when you look at Cosmos 96, it's about 15 feet high. It has all these protrusions, looks like a water heater or something. It absolutely, and it couldn't have done any of the things that the people described coming down in Kecksburg. So it wasn't that.
Okay, well, we got a couple minutes to go. What I'd like to do, I'd like to play a short video for you and then take a couple of minutes for quick comments afterwards. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Good.
Good.
Okay, give me a second to set it up here.
We went there free from the mother.
Okay. Let's see, where is it? Here it is. Everybody see this?
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
I was in the United States Army for 2 years, drafted. And then I got out of the military, went to college, and graduated in 1963 in a BSEE degree. Since then, I have been in a graduate program for nuclear engineering. Also, I've taken pre-med, and I've been working contracts since 1963 also for NASA, Department of Energy, and several other electronic firms in the Washington, D.C. area. In 1957 to 59, I was mostly in outside of Albany, Maryland, just north of Washington, D.C., at a Nike Ajax missile facility. I was a radar operator. In May of 1958, about 6 a.m., and the reason I knew it was 6 is because that's when everybody got up. I looked out the window. At first, I heard a sound. It sounded like a pulsating transformer. I looked out the window and looked across the field and saw this object heading towards the ground and saw it crash. It broke apart, and then it took off again in flight. I immediately got dressed, went up onto the hill where the radar was, got a telescope that we tracked the North Star with to line our radar antennas, and sat and mounted on that radar and looked at the pieces that were laying across the field. And the largest piece that I saw, which was actually glowing white hot, was probably the size of a washing machine. Shortly thereafter, the Air Force personnel had arrived going across this field and started picking up these pieces. Now, they used long poles, very long poles, to pick up the biggest piece, and they proceeded to put it on a truck that was lead line truck and pushed it in with another long pole and got it inside the truck itself. Then the other personnel picked up the other pieces that were laying about. Now, what's interesting about it is from my knowledge of nuclear things now, I recall that these personnel were wearing radiation suits, protective suits. And then they proceeded to take the material away, have no idea where it went. The other issue there was that when the craft took off again after it crashed, it went through a grove of trees, which it actually sheared 3, 4, 5-inch limbs in just one fell swoop, or like a knife or a machete. Well, that wasn't the real exciting part. The real exciting part happened the next evening while I was on duty, and it was approximately 10, 11 at night. And I got a call from the Gaithersburg facility saying that they had 12 to 15 UFOs 50 to 100 feet off the ground. So I asked the guy who was on the radio with me, I said, what do they sound like? He took his head mic off, put it out the van window, and again, the pulsating sound, except there were more of them. And he was describing them. and in different shapes and so forth. I had the radar on, the M33 radar, sweep radar, and I found right next to the ground clutter where Gaithersburg sits. I found the blip where these vehicles were, and then all of a sudden they all took off at the same time. And from my radar scope, it went one sweep. It's a 33 and a third RPM. To go that distance from the center out to where I got the next blip in the first sweep at a constant velocity would have to be 17,000 miles an hour, which we calculated from our analog computer. It was probably in excess of 30 feet in diameter. It had circular balls that appeared on the outer rim up close to a cake-like fixture on top. And they were different colors. They were orange and red and some yellow, but they were pulsating. So, I mean, it was quite a sight to see as it was wobbling towards the earth and hit. And it came in at a fairly rapid rate.
How far away was it from you?
Where it crashed, well, it came actually over top of the barracks. So I actually saw the tail end of where it crashed. It was approximately 2,000 yards. And the reason I know that is because it paralleled the launch pad, which is 2,000 yards away. There was one individual on guard duty who actually saw it come in and went over top of him. And the guard shack was just a few yards away from the barracks. And he saw that actually come down and crash all the way from when it first appeared.
But you said the retrieval was apparently by Air Force.
The Air Force, yes, it was outside the fences of the target or the radar area and also the launch pad. So it was in the civilian area. It landed in this person's cornfield. In fact, the farmer was actually standing there washing his hands when he saw it crash and take off again. It's near Mount Zion, Maryland. It's just on the other side of Mount Zion, going east. I do know that the article hit the New York Times the next day. 58. May of 58. Directive came down not to mention this to anybody anyway. But it, of course, by this time was already out in the newspapers. What did occur was when I tracked the next night, I tracked those vehicles that were taking off. There was a question as to what they really were, and the general came back and said, well, those were helicopters, and they were doing some Navy, Army, Air Force maneuvers.
So that was.
And we all had a big laugh about that one. That was the cover story used, yes. And obviously there were other people had radars on it. They actually saw those go off also. I had another one, which I can't say too much about. I can't say where I was. I was at a facility in California. That's all I can say. And I was doing particular classified work. Set aside from what was actually happening there. It was a completely different scenario. The only thing I can say is it was occurring at the same time that our astronauts were doing a loop around the moon and back again. On their trip to that moon, or to the moon itself, I heard the expression of the bogey coming in at 11 o'clock. Well, familiar with that particular term, I perked my ears and started listening a little bit and discovered that Houston and the astronauts were talking back and forth about a collision. And the astronauts asked for permission to do avoidance for a collision, and Houston finally granted that permission to do that. And after the comm links settled down a little bit, the astronauts said, it's not necessary. They are now paralleling our course. And there was a discussion as to what was paralleling that course. There was another type of ship. There were portals there that they could see in. They could see beings of some sort. They did not describe these beings. They just took photographs. And after a while, a few thousand miles, and then they took off from the capsule that they were flying in and went away. They just said it was saucer-like craft, yes.
That was paralleling their craft.
Actually paralleling their craft. And it was just far enough away they couldn't really distinguish. They saw movement, they saw somebody moving inside that ship. This is before the landing, yes. It was probably in 68, 67, maybe, somewhere in that time frame. All they said was there they go, and they went out of sight almost immediately from their conversation. It was unedited because of where I was. An extremely restricted channel. As a matter of fact, when I was doing work at NASA, I got into the NASA library looking for the tapes. Never did find them. There's only one gentleman there that said I shouldn't. No, he said, like, you didn't hear anything. And I said, hear what? And I was into that. In fact, the gentleman was very disturbed I was even there for what I was doing. A bogey is when you're flying is an object coming in, and normally during World War II they used those, and also Korean War, as a term for potential enemy craft approaching. And if they don't know the aircraft type, they call it a bogey. Approximately halfway to the moon.
On the way to.
On the way to the moon. Yes. Their reactions were somewhat stoic. I mean, no big thing. They didn't go, wow, look at that. Look what I'm seeing. No, nothing like that at all. They just said the bogey's next to us and they're flying. Very professional. Not surprising. I don't know what instrumentation they particularly had, but they knew at their course they were going to intersect. No question about it. So they must have had some device that would tell on that. It's obvious in space, I would imagine.
Very good Turkish friends. Went scuba diving with him.
Anyway,
He would talk about.
hold on a second. Let me see if I can stop this.
Hey, Joe, who runs CSETI? Whose site is that?
This was what's the name? The Disclosure Project.
Greer?
Greer, yeah.
Greer?
Yeah, matter of fact, the interest, hold on one second here. Okay. Yeah, that was Greer. Now, the reason I played that, Nike, and this goes back to the flyover Washington, D.C., they were saying use Nike to shoot down UFOs. Now, May of 1958, when this event took place, the same month, the worst accident in Nike history happened on another site that was heavily engaged with UFOs as well. Worst accident in Nike history. 10 men were killed, 6 soldiers, 4 DoD civilians. Also, near that site, the one time that a nuclear weapon was all poised and ready to fly in anger was during a UFO landing near that site that blew up. So there's a lot of history, and also I've been giving tours at one of these sites for about the past 10 or 12 years. And over that period of time, I've had former Nike crew members come up to me and say, yeah, we've had interesting things happening. Some of them were actually nuclear sites. We had 24 nuclear armed Nike missiles at the one site where I give the tour. So a lot of history with Nike and UFOs. So I thought that might be kind of interesting for people. Any questions or comments about it? If not, okay, well, want to thank you all for being here tonight. We can do one quick round robin if you want, just to say goodnight. Stan, you want to say goodnight?
I do. Thank you, Joe. Again, wonderful programming. Just cutting edge. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick, for being here. You make it help make it a success.
Hey, Nick, your group, do they meet, or is it an online chat like this, Nick?
We do both.
Well,
we do videos as well. John, my email is right where my screen is. If you could just take a look at that and just give me an email, I can get you in.
Yeah, I'd like to, maybe just occasionally jump on there. Yeah, I should have your email. I know your email. Okay.
Joe
Nick's
did a
doing the
program. Joe
pictures.
did a program for us, and he did a program, and it was all done with dance and costumes. And it was one of the most beautiful things we've ever seen. Joe, again,
Yes, I stood on my head and spit nickels too.
the dance of the planets, and I'll never forget it. Never.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, hold on a second. Nick, I need your email again.
Nick NYNY1, and that's the numeral one, not ONE, but the numeral one at gmail.com.
Nick NYNY1. Okay.
One at gmail.com. Just give me that with your name and phone number, if you will, and that will also have, of course, your email, and I'll get you back.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Stan, you want to?
Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and look forward to the next one.
Thank
I was
you.
looking forward to October 4th.
We'll see you next month.
You got it.
John, you want to?
Wait. What's October 4th?
Pennsylvania?
Oh, okay. I thought you meant there was a conference call. It's no, you can't have a conference call. It's the conference. All right.
Okay, Bruce.
Thank you very much, Joe, for inviting me and for the discussion. It was very helpful.
Very helpful having you here too, Bruce. Enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
Mindy.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Very interesting discussion. I did put a link in the chat for a video on some information about Three Eye Atlas.
Okay.
Oh, Joe, something. Did you invite George Filer?
I sent it out to him, but George doesn't always show up. Sometimes he does, sometimes he
Right.
doesn't.
Well, have you seen his latest Filer's file?
Yeah, I was scanning it today. I got it today. Some interesting things, but I didn't go into detail. I was trying to get.
Yeah, he shows a picture of Jacques Vallée standing next to me.
Yeah,
I thought that was rather interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to see if we get Jacques Vallée on one of these days.
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, let's see. Millie, what do you got?
Thank you very much for everything. Great program.
Well,
Looking forward to next month.
Thanks for being here. Enjoyed having
Thank you, Millie.
Thank you.
Will, you want to say goodnight? Oh, you're a tough customer.
A little bit before my bedtime, though. I'm 2 hours ahead of you guys, or behind, I should say.
Right. Okay, and user's gone. User, you want to say goodnight? Okay, tough customers. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Enjoyed it tonight. Look forward to seeing you all next month.
Excellent.
Love
Have a
to
good
all.
evening. Thank
Love
you.
to all. Take good care.
Night.
Wonderful show.
Night.